Hello everyone and welcome back to a full stream guide. And before I begin, make sure you are subscribed for more tips and informational guides. Follow me on Twitter to keep up on my latest posts, but also to join my supporter giveaway. So, in the previous part, I introduced you all to the absolute fundamentals of streams, which starts from the basic bursts. This will allow you to build a strong base for your streaming journey. You are learning basic accuracy skills, finger coordination and understanding rhythm, so if you haven't watched that video already, go ahead and do so. We're progressing in a linear fashion. As star rating increases slowly, we start getting involved with more complex skills, so it's important to not skip star ratings as we don't want to bottleneck ourselves on this journey. Back then I talked about the high 4 stars, now we move on to the 5-star range with greater emphasis on flow aim, tapping and consistency. Timestamps are on screen right now and in the description down below, so let's get right into it. But maybe you don't just want to stream on Osu, maybe you want to pursue a streaming career on Twitch. Well, Owned Pro has got your back. It's a professional and easy to use plugin for OBS Studio, where you can install overlays for your Twitch in just one click, and you can choose from hundreds of clean and animated overlays, many of which come in different languages and more to come. My channel revolves around green colours. This one will do. Click install and that's literally it. And look, they've even created a new scene collection so that you haven't lost your previous scenes. Customize it to your needs, then you've got a fully functional and aesthetically pleasing overlay, ready to go live on your Twitch channel. Check out their dashboard to find out more about your statistics, configure settings like your alerts, the chatbot, donations, the countdown label and much more to come. So join now for free using the link owned.gg/toner. Thank you Owned for sponsoring this video, let's get back into the guide. So you're comfortable with the bursting fundamentals at around the high 4 stars. Progressing on to low to mid 5 stars is sensible, and now the need for flow aim is emphasised on a lot of the stream based maps here. Well, what even is flow aim? It's the ability to aim and traverse a pattern in a fluid motion. That can be any pattern, alternating patterns, tech patterns, streams, and you could even argue that someone is flow aiming certain jump patterns as well. But how do you achieve flow aim? It's been discussed briefly in my aim guide. It's achieved by tracing your view of a pattern. You can't read notes individually for streams because there's so many notes coming up all at once. So when you try and trace a stream as a shape, your movement becomes automatically smooth. But that's harder than it sounds. You have to also match the acceleration of the stream and its curvature. I say acceleration, but that's just the changes in speed of your cursor movement. The BPM of the stream never changes, unless it has ridiculously high rhythm complexity. Though that kind of curvature is not so evident here at the low 5-star range, but that doesn't mean flow aim isn't relevant. You still need fluid motion to hit this stream, even though it's obviously not as curved as something like Freedom Dive. I'll still go ahead and discuss some perspectives on how to follow the flow of a stream. So I've heard people talking about picturing a stream as an entire slider, which follows the principle of tracing a shape. Maybe that'll work out for you, but that hasn't worked out for me. I was a jump one trick a while back, so the idea of looking at a pattern as a shape really didn't help me at all. I'm constantly over aiming because I'm looking too far ahead. I was basically a React gamer. Yikes. What I did instead was really try to narrow it down, finding a balance between individual note reading and tracing your view of a shape. Reading notes in chunks. Reading in chunks meant that I could focus on the flow of the stream a lot better. I'm genuinely making my best effort to narrow down on where and how my cursor should match the flow. I'm not saying, oh, I read absolutely every single stream at exactly 8 circles at a time, because that's just not the point. Though, in some cases, it can be particularly useful if it's mapped in that way, because you've broken down the long stream into smaller chunks which are easier to follow. I'm just narrowing my vision down so that I have less chance of resorting to reaction, and instead I have a greater sense of patience, control and focus. Maybe you've heard that somewhere before. Also, don't just jump straight into 7-star stream maps to practice flow aim. It does nothing. It's always best to ease yourself into it. First it's the low 5 stars, then mid 5 stars, then high 5 stars, etc. The curvature and flow aim difficulty gradually increases, and that's why it's best to progress comfortably. No rushing things. But actually, before you start practicing flow aim, you first have to master the tapping of the stream. Your tapping hand must literally be automatic before you can focus on the flow of the stream. That's exactly why I first explored the fundamentals of rhythm and finger control at the beginning of the guide rather than stuff like flow aim. It's obviously the case that if you can't even tap the stream, there's just no way you can finish the flow of the stream. So emphasis on perfecting BPMs is now relevant, and we can actually have a good go at the stream map packs, spending a lot of our time setting goals, failing, passing, then eventually FCing maps of the BPM that we want to perfect. Essentially, it's play more of the BPM so that you get used to the rhythm. I do suggest mastering a BPM that you are comfortable with at first. It's easier to practice flow aim at lower BPMs. 160 to 180 tends to be the most common range for streams. BPMs beyond that require more precise yet fast tapping, and you'll note lock more often if you tried flow aim intensive maps of high BPM. By the time you've quote unquote perfected BPMs, your tapping hand has become automatic. So you just let yourself unconsciously tap the stream, and now you can consciously focus on the flow of the stream, tracing it to match its acceleration and curvature. That's where lots of players get stuck, because they keep note locking on flow heavy streams without really understanding the rhythm and tapping behind it. It also means that you can have a good go at these quote unquote stream practice maps that are just long ass death streams, because now you're focusing on the tapping after having a good understanding of rhythm from the bursting fundamentals. Your aim wouldn't be to FC them necessarily, but just holding good act for as long as you can is a good start. Again, I'll never claim in any of these videos that it's easy. It will take hundreds of hours to learn, hundreds more to master. Don't be afraid of bad accuracy or failing at first because you're new to the skill. There is nothing wrong with failing or bad accuracy at first because everyone has been there. Marami couldn't stream 300 BPM out of the fucking womb, alright? Legend says he struggled with 180 BPM at first. Also, pay attention to the OD of the map. OD is overall difficulty. It determines the timing of the hit windows for 300s, 100s, etc. The higher the OD, the smaller the hit windows. That means it's harder to act because you have a smaller time frame to be accurate. So if you're struggling because of higher OD than you're used to, then it's absolutely okay, it's normal. You'll get better at it when you play more. Lower OD might be a struggle too, because it causes note lock very easily if the note density is relatively high. Still solved with play more, of course. Here's a few more tips on mastering rhythm and tapping. Tweak your music and sound effect settings. So the idea is to emphasize the hit sounds. I went with 100% sound effects, 70% music, but configure it to whatever you want. I do suggest keeping the music though at the very least. You're not trying to imitate a metronome. Personally, I've stuck with these settings for a long time now. Again, use the hit error graph to know whether you're understreaming or overstreaming, then consciously try to change the speed of your tapping to make it close to the center. Enable it in the settings like so if you haven't already. Also, don't use relax. Don't even use it for any form of training, honestly, but it's particularly the case for streams even if you want to use it to practice flow aim. Oh, I've landed the jumps! Oh, I've landed the streams! Now I just need to get the tapping right, says the 6th digit. No shot. The leniency of relax is so absurdly high that you can flick your wrist in the streams and it magically lands. More importantly though, it doesn't train your tapping, and I've already emphasized why that's important. Now that I've talked about flow aim and tapping, I want to talk about reducing nerves and increasing consistency. Why is that related to streams, you might ask? And it's because when you have good consistency and good understanding of your nerves, then it's easier to nail the streams when your tapping hand stays automatic. You can then have your full attention on the flow of the stream. It explains why Varvalian can still hit these streams despite shaking like he's got fucking Parkinson's. It can also lead to lower UR in the long run. UR is unstable rate. It's a measure of spread or consistency of your tapping regardless of accuracy. Lower UR means your tapping is consistent. It's bunched up like this, but high UR leads to more spread, less consistency. Motherfucker, your graph looks like a barcode, dude. Anyway, I'll talk about nerves first because it's a very, very common discussion I have with 6 digits all the time. You can't stop nerves. Your body has a nervous system. It's a biological mechanism, a natural stress response, boosting adrenaline to prepare against a threat. But what threat? The threat of failure? Failing to set a nice top play? It's mostly being scared of the outcome and not the process. That's exactly why the mentality of just playing for PP and rank only is detrimental. Instead, you should play solely for the purpose of setting scores that you want to set. PP is just that silly number that's attached to it. So, nerves are normal. Don't find ways to quote unquote stop nerves because that's fucking impossible. Top players get nervous too. You've seen BTMC. Heck, you'll even see it from MREC. But you only recognise their successes and not their failures. They reach success by learning to play with nerves or naturally reducing it by, kid you not, playing more of the map. Top players fail hundreds, thousands of times before reaching the levels that you see them play at today. There is absolutely nothing wrong with failing as long as you don't give up. So, play more. Play more of the map that you want to set a score on in this case. Obviously not some 10-star jump spam that you hope to FC with RNG, but something that you know is achievable. I'm not saying retry the map 1000 times a second until the day you die, but keep familiarizing yourself with it from time to time. For certain maps with difficulty spikes, I recommend creating practice difficulties so that you familiarize yourself and build consistency on those hard sections. Link to a tutorial for that is on screen right now by Digital Hypno. When it finally comes to the real run, you will have trained this section so many times and hopefully have higher chances of FCing. Okay, now one might still complain, oh my god, I'm still nervous though. So what? You'll eventually reach a point where you've played it so many times that you think to yourself, yeah, I've been here before already hundreds of times, without even realizing that you're nervous. When idK has good runs on a map, he just likes to think to himself, this is just a good run, don't think too much about it. Because he's played it countless times, he's been here before. It all relates to consistency. Consistency is a mental kind of struggle. It revolves around maintaining your form across multiple runs or extended periods of time. Stamina is a physical struggle, which I'll talk about in the next part to the series. How do you become consistent? I've explained a little bit already. Play more. But from my perspective, improving consistency for this particular skill set can be done by playing longer maps, which is particularly relevant now at this star range. Easing yourself into longer maps starts with setting realistic goals. No shot you're FCing a 22-minute marathon map as a TV-sized one trick, but adding 30 seconds to make it a 2-minute map is definitely doable. That's realistic. Aim to FC 2-minute maps then. And emphasis on the FC because it's so important to FC, I can't stress that enough. FCing proves that you are capable. It gives you confidence knowing that you've done something, and now you can transfer that mentality onto other maps. Shit missing happens. You can't stop it. Top players struggle with it too. But if it's consistently shit missing, then it's likely that you're not reading properly. Focus harder on individual note reading and stop reacting. Also, if you shit miss like in the middle of the map, then just finish playing the map so that you understand the rest of the patterns. idK tactic, don't retry. After 2 minutes it's 2 minutes 30, maybe even 3 minutes straight up, increasing until you're so used to having a high combo that you realise that you're not a TV sized one trick anymore. Shift tab to turn off the UI if that helps you reduce your nerves as well. And well, that's really everything I wanted to talk about for today, so let's wrap it up with a conclusion. Today I've talked about flow aim, tapping, nerves and consistency. To achieve flow aim, you trace your general view of a pattern. Maybe you want to picture it as a whole shape like a slider, or splitting it into chunks makes it easier for you to focus on exactly how the stream flows. But first, most importantly, you have to nail the tapping. You can achieve that by playing more maps around the BPM range that you want to perfect. Changing your audio settings could help you there. Nerves and consistency is a huge struggle at any point in the game, to anyone in the game. But understanding it and building on it means that the streaming journey is so much easier. That's why I've talked about setting goals to FC longer maps, because it helps with consistency and nerves in my opinion. There's a map pack for no mod consistency in the description down below. That's pretty much it. And in the next part we'll discuss how to train your stamina, speed and more intricacies like split streams and other fancy shit, featuring some very special guests. So again, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and like the video for more stream guides. Thank you all so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next video. Peace!